Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Tim, and thank you, Kim. I want to say thanks to our hosts here at Brew Merchant. Let's give them a hand. I find a night at Brew Merchant is rarely disappointing, and tonight is no exception. And thanks to all of you for coming out on kind of short notice. I'm loving the energy, loving seeing every single one of you here. We're going to take that energy and build on it. So hello friends, my name is Bryan Berghoef, and I am running for Congress in this district. I'm a native of West Michigan. I grew up here, went to school here, went to church here, met my wife here, had my children here. And speaking of family, would love to introduce my lovely wife, Christy. Many of you know her, and if you haven't had the chance to meet her yet, please do so. She's been an incredible partner with me in our married life, in parenting life, in ministry life, and I trust in this next stage of life together as well. I'd love to introduce my kids, but I think you probably won't see them. They're trying to be out of sight. But I have 4 lovely children. Henry is 16. Raise your hand, Henry. There he is. All right. Winston is 14. All right. Charles is 12. And our daughter Josephine is 10. Last but certainly not least. And I have great memories of growing up in Coopersville here in the 2nd District, and of course exploring many of the other great parts of West Michigan. We used to camp in Ludington and Muskegon. We'd go to the beaches in Grand Haven. We'd pop into Holland to enjoy the tulips, and we'd often stop for treats at the Dutch store in Granville. Just being honest, I was born in Grand Rapids, a child of immigrant parents. My parents came from the Netherlands to West Michigan seeking to better their lives in this great country. And so I'm proud to be a first-generation American. And I am so glad they were never told, go back to where you came from. West Michigan was better than that then, and we need to be better than that right now. And growing up here, I learned a lot. I learned that children are a precious gift from God and should always be honored and treated like we would want our own children to be treated. I was taught that I have a lot to learn from the elders in our communities, folks with a lot more life experience than I have. I was taught that we've been divinely entrusted to be caretakers of creation, of this earth, which sustains us. And I was taught that I'm to care for my neighbors, no matter the color of their skin, or the language they speak, or the country they come from. And I learned all these things as a Republican voter. True story. I won't ask for a show of hands for who's ever voted Republican in their life. Converts welcome. And yet for me, when I began to study the history of this nation, I began to understand some complexities in a new way. That it wasn't enough to say work harder to someone when there were entire systems and structures stacked against their success. And I learned that it wasn't enough to say, I'm not racist, when we live in a world embedded with white privilege. And I also learned that many of the policies and politicians that I had unquestionably supported were actually standing in opposition to so many of the biblical values that I had been taught. How could I love the stranger while supporting oppressive immigration policies? How could I love my enemy while supporting unprovoked military interventions? How could I help the poor while supporting policies that were designed to line the pockets of the wealthy while being harmful and oppressive to those most in need? And so ironically, it was reading the Bible that led to a transformation of my politics. And so even though I'd grown up learning about Jesus and the importance of believing in him, I somehow had missed what he was actually saying. And here's the truth. I do not see the values of Jesus reflected in our current political leadership. You've probably heard that I'm a pastor, and if not, maybe you've guessed it by a little of this Jesus talk. But why would a pastor run for office? Why would a pastor run for office? Well, like many of you, my values and my faith compel me to take action when I see my neighbors hurting, when the marginalized are ignored and mistreated, and when space is not made for people because they love differently or believe differently. In fact, I've grown to love and respect people of other faith traditions as well as those who claim no faith. For the past 10 years, I've gathered with all kinds of people, Baptists, Catholics, atheists, humanists, CRC and RCA people, Buddhists, Jews, Muslims, and I've met with them in settings just like this, to sit down together and talk and look each other in the eye and see one another, not the other, but a fellow human being. And what I found is that when we sit down together and listen to each other, instead of making assumptions and relying on stereotypes, we learn, we become open, and we make new friends. And I think we discover that we have a lot more in common than we have apart, frankly. And as your representative, I will absolutely respect the separation of church and state in this country, and I will never support policies that are for the benefit of a select group at the expense of others. And so my word to those of you, not sure how many in this crowd, who may have been supporters of Bill Huizenga or President Trump in the past, I say this: let's talk. Right? Let's talk. I'm not going to write you off, and I hope you don't write me off. Let's understand each other, and let's see if we can work together, because my guess is that we actually can. Despite the divide we have in our country, I think we really can come together across difference for the common good.
Yes, yes.
And so one of the things my campaign plans to do at the outset is launch a listening tour throughout the district, where I'm going to show up in your town, your neighborhood, your corner of the district, and we're going to gather people. And it doesn't matter if they vote Republican or Democrat or Independent. And it's a chance for me to sit down and hear, what are your concerns? What are your questions? What are your values? What do you want to see in your political representation in Washington, D.C.? And so if that sounds like it's of interest to you, talk to my team over here. Let's get your info. You can host a listening stop, and we'll make it happen. And as Dr. Rob already noted, this is going to take a total team effort. We're going to need all the arms and legs and energies we can get. We're going to need people to hit the street, getting petitions, knocking on doors, putting in yard signs, hosting fundraisers, hosting listening tour events, and we're going to need people donating to our campaign. Because unlike my opponent, I vowed not to take any corporate PAC money in this campaign. I believe strongly that we cannot allow corporations to steal the voices of hardworking Americans, especially not here in District 2. And so here's the bottom line. It's time we refuse to concede this district to the status quo. It's time we refuse to concede this district to apathy and business as usual. It's time we refuse to concede this district because they say West Michigan only votes one way. It's time we refuse to concede this district to big money. Instead, we are going to reclaim this district for compassion. We are going to reclaim this district for human decency. We are going to reclaim this district for good paying jobs, livable wages, affordable housing, and health care for every single American. And we're going to reclaim this district for people of all backgrounds, all races, ethnicities, orientations, and identifications, because West Michigan is more diverse than ever, and that is a beautiful and welcome thing. So here it is, friends. We're not just going to reclaim this district, we're going to win it. And I need you to join me because it's about all of us. As Rob said, it's not any one person, it is all of us together, and all of us together can build on what happened last cycle, and this time we're going to push it over the top. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for supporting my campaign. I look forward to more conversations with each and every one of you. Thank you. Have a good night.